All right, hello everyone and welcome. I hope you all have been having a great Art Deco weekend so far. My name is Daniel Seraldo, and I'm the Executive Director of the Miami Design Preservation League, which, for those of you who do not know, we are the organizers of the Art Deco weekend. Since 1977, I believe, was the first Art Deco weekend. But today I'm very honored because we have a little history right here. Two of my great predecessors, former executive directors, many know Barbara Kappeman, one of our first executive directors, and we fill her shoes. But we have Nancy Liebman, who came after, and then George Neary, and there have been many other great ones, and now you're all stuck with me for now. But I've learned a lot of great things from both of you over the years, and I think you've both really been mentors, and I just want to thank you. Nancy, you've been a great friend, and friends forever. We don't always agree on every project.
But friends usually know.
We love Art Deco, we love historic preservation, and you know, it's complicated, right, in the city. And George, I will never be able to compete with your fashion. I'm not even going to try. But thank you for all you do, and we will try to continue on the great legacy you all have built. Before I head out, I wanted to plug Nancy's amazing book, Preservation Dreams, Reflections of the Miami Beach Activists. So Nancy has been very busy working on her second book, which is still in print, but we do have 10 of her first book, that's a great book, available for sale to Nancy for $10. So anyone interested could purchase after the event. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to subscribe. And we look forward to seeing you at many upcoming events. Thank you all. And now I'll pass it over to George. Give us a round of applause.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. As Daniel has mentioned, both Nancy and I following Barbara Bear Kappeman's pumps.
I was here told I learned. Barbara did her thing, and I did mine.
Well, I meant as the executive director, administration-wise.
Mine was quieter.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, I was here from 91 to 98. I followed Nancy. Nancy ran for commission. Just a little more background and history. And Nancy was elected without a runoff twice. Very unusual in Miami Beach. So, and I worked with the Preservation League in those days. I've done about 8 Art Deco weekends. It's just been a wonder. This year's the 46th, I think.
Yes.
46. And just another plug, Daniel is not only doing this project, but he's hosting, along with the City of Miami Beach and the International Society of Art Deco organizations, and they're having their annual, or I should say annual, but regularly scheduled conference here in Miami Beach in
April 18th to 30th. Visit 16th World Congress on artdeco.com, or we do have a tent right next to the building with brochures and all information. I guess I'll plug it a little bit. It's the World Congress, so think of Art Deco Weekend as like the big event for the public to come and enjoy the beautiful scenery, whereas the World Congress is a real intense tour, and it's a series of visits to different sites, dinners and galas and dances. So those of you who are really interested, we welcome you to that event as well. So check out our website here, has a link there directly.
The poster is relating to that.
Oh, you're right. So yeah, the poster this year, Art Deco Worldwide, is also the theme of this year. Relates to the fact that we'll be having a World Congress. And you were probably at the first one. Maybe you could tell us.
Yeah, I was very fortunate when I got here in 1991. In January of 1992, which they had, obviously, whatever year that was, Art Deco, I spent my time with the people ministering the first World Congress. And I saw more of Miami then than I think I've ever seen, because it was so well organized. We went to so many places that, you know, the villages in Coral Gables, The list goes on and on. So this year it's going to be wonderful. I want to make a certain nod to Daniel and the volunteers. This will be a wonderful event. But we stand on the shoulders of Nancy Liebman. As I mentioned, she was both times elected without a runoff. She's been volunteering, ever since in different communities in the MIMO district, which became a historic district thanks to her work. And the list goes on and on. So if you are not so familiar, you can obviously Google her. You can obviously buy the book for $10 and read about it. But we want to ask Nancy, she was alluding to that she worked here a lot longer than a lot of other people. So Nancy, do you want to start talking about your own personal history? He's got to go to work.
No, I'll be in the back. I'll be watching.
Okay.
Well, at last, welcome, and I'm delighted to see a room full of people we used to have long ago. People came and they loved the place. And it's amazing, it's still here, and it gets better with time. I haven't seen it in a year, and I'm amazed, not only by how it looks. It's clean, Daniel. I remember the last time I was here, we were in the dark.
I didn't like it.
So it's wonderful. I did prepare something that I wanted to do with all of you, and then we can have another conversation after, because I have much more I would like to share with you. So today I want to tell you that I have some true stories about Miami Beach, starting from the year 1979. How many of you were born 1979? Oh, there's a couple. 1979, and this book and the book that is coming, you can't even count on books these days. I'm waiting for my book to come, otherwise it would have been here. They tell me February, so maybe we'll come back in February. But I started telling stories that I will present to you from my new book. It's called Another Landmark Bites the Dust. Now, the background to this, all of you, I'm sure, know the episodes that have followed in all the years when we couldn't get anybody to even look at one little word on a book that dared to say anything about historic preservation. And the book titles and things that I'm going to talk about are things that happened when they were not really being looked upon as something to do. It was always some nasty word for whoever was talking about it. Now, I started in June, started way back on the time when the preservation movement started to come, because there were other people in other places who had already figured how to preserve these Art Deco pieces. It was, I will tell you, it was one of the most disgusting display of people who just wanted to call it Deco Dreco. So keep that in mind. That word, those words went around forever in the early days. In 1979, I started when we talked about before, started, and I, for the first time in my life and in a place like that, I was so inspired that I joined the group June
Doesn't matter.
I think I'm not going to talk about myself that much. I want to go back and talk about what I want you to hear. You don't have to hear. You've heard from me for years. That's enough. So today I want to tell you about some of the true stories of Miami Beach, starting from the year 1979. I was a newcomer. I had just raised my children, and I was looking for something to do, and here I went and found them. And I have been involved in this since until the year 2002. That was the last year that I was formally involved. But I've never stopped. My best thing was to write my book and talk about it, because that makes much more sense to me. So,
Well, I was going to say, why don't you talk a little bit about how your activism really started in school? I mean, it was your dedication in the PTA and things like that
Yes.
that brought you into the next phase, which is preservation.
You reminded me of that. And I said I came long before Barbara. I think I was even older than her, wasn't I? Anybody think? I don't know. But
More now.
I did. I'm catching up with you. So the stories that I wish to talk about are from the new book, Another Landmark Bites the Dust, and I think you all can figure out what it is that I have been trying to say since 1979. The book is about a bundle of memoirs, and I found them one day in my closet while I was cleaning out the usual junk that was in there. And it was during the pandemic, so it gave me something to do. I couldn't get out the door. I thought, two weeks, the pandemic will be finished, so I may as well do this and play with this. And I planned up that it was, of course, close to 3 years until the pandemic was done. It's not done yet. The bundle was in my clothes closet, and it turned out to be more than 150 articles. And it turned me into the preservation activist 43 years ago. Now, I'm waiting. Many of these articles brought back fond memories to me of the local historic preservation movement that began in 1979, when the president of the National Trust for Historic Preservation arrived in Miami Beach to announce that the beach was going to be placed on the National Register of Historic Places. It was so inspiring. All of the members who were so worried about having this whole idea of preservation just put away. It was an honor, a fabulous honor for our community, and it inspired a large group of people to come forward and join us. little did I realize that this challenge was going to become, that it was going to become a thing that I would be so impressed with. Now, as I read this book, it is being told as if it was happening today. The dates, I'll give you a date and talk about what happened in that date. And the dates are very genuine. So you sit back and think about, there you are, all 1979, happy as a lark, watching the wonderful Art Deco things that were happening at that time. So, starting, the district, June 30th, that was my first note. I had been there before, nobody talked about it. I can't even remember how far back I go before I started. But when I finally found the way, June 30th, 1985 was when I felt comfortable enough to approach an audience and talk about it. Up until then, I used to just chatter with people I knew. So that was a big day for me. And the first day, the district was waiting restlessly for the Deco hotels to open. That's what was happening on that date. There was a lady named Gilda Kalamowitz. She was 70 years old. She marched out on the porch of the Cardozo Hotel, one of the 6 Art Deco hotels closed almost from a year ago. It was supposed to be only a 2-month renovation. Gilda plastered her hands on her hands and her nose against the window of the Art Deco building, and she put her nose there against the window and peered in at a lobby piled with high pile of plywood, and she turned away, struggling. She yelled so loud, she scared the group of people who were ruining this wonderful hotel. She said to them, every week I tell you people who are working here, enough is enough. Enough already. Get this finished before I'm 101 years old. And I thought that was just so brilliant that I wanted to work with her toward that. So she said, I am liking to see some young blood in this part of town. Mind you, she was 70 years old when she was talking. She wanted to see some young blood in this part of the town. The Art Deco district is the great white hope of the city. This is really a very mysterious delay that the people who own this group of buildings, just have avoided. And that was those were the people who first bought up those Art Deco hotels. I think there were 4 or 5 of them. And we were waiting for them to do something with it. Never happened. Then somebody else poked her nose goes into it and said, they are holding Miami Beach hostage, said Nancy Liebman. That's me, and that's how I would present myself by then. They're holding the whole thing hostage. Opening dates had been forecasted and bypassed it, while the royal group, I think the name will probably interest you, by the royal group, since the hotels closed last summer for a $15 million, mind you, this was back in 1985. They were going to put in a $15 million renovation. The delays had been attributed to primarily that they were going to build a meticulous restoration, tropical Latin quarter. Does anybody believe that that would have ever happened? And away they went. My next group, the beach turns to Deco as an artful savior. This was December 2nd, 1986. 4 years ago, under the pressure from Miami-Dade County, the Miami Beach City Commission reluctantly approved an historic preservation ordinance. Didn't that sound great? We took one look at it. It was, actually, there was nothing to it. The politicians and the business leaders who once said historic preservation would slow the city's rebirth are now hailing this movement and its economic salvation. However, it didn't fool everybody. It was done with the feeling that if they throw us, what is it? If they just throw us a bean, we'll be happy and we'll have an Arctic thing. So, at that time, the slow birth was now trying to get into its economic salvation. A few years ago, you were like a pariah in this community, said Neeson Kasdan. I think you all know him if you're a Miami Beach person, but he was a young man out of college, and he came to try to help us put it together. So Neeson said, knew that the opposition, there was no support on the commission. Why are we going to bother with it? But he felt very good to announce that this was going to be better one of these days. Well, we're still waiting for that day. In July, commissioners used provisions of newly strengthened preservation ordinance to create the beach's first local historic district. Just because there were a couple of districts around, a couple of people decided they're going to enjoy the architecture, they finally found somebody who was interested in what's going to happen. In July, commissioners used provisions of a newly strengthened preservation ordinance to create the beach's first historic district. Mayor Alex Dowd, I am sure you all know him by now. Alex Dowd, who we thought was just somebody to come around and say a couple of funny things and go back to trying to make a better place for his architecture, he said that Art Deco and Mediterranean architecture are one of the greatest assets we have. Now, I think I wrote that down, so I remember that he did say that. That was amazing.
I'm shocked.
Early last month, the Commission created a seat for a preservationist on the city's planning board, long a bastion of developers and builders and hostile to preservation. 2 weeks ago, commissioners reversed the 16-month-old resolution and voted to kill a proposal by Tibor Hollow. Yeah, if you're old, you know who he was. Yes. Well, he only wanted to build a parking garage on one of the plots on the ocean front. And he came thinking that, of course, there's none of us around, so he was going to announce it. He wanted to build a parking garage in the city's largest remaining ocean front lots. Imagine if that had occurred. I don't think we would have come here at that moment. I am overwhelmed, said Nancy Liebman, a member of the city's Historic Preservation Board. You cannot imagine what a joy it is to see all of our issues passing. That's how hungry we are. We thought that they had big issues that were passing. Preservationists say that their fight is far from over. The 2 local historic districts approved by this commission, which include Ocean Drive, take only a small portion of the nationally recognized Art Deco area. The Royal Group, this goes now to April 9th, 1987. The Deco Hotel was to be razed on April 9th, 1987. The Royal Group, owner of a row of Art Deco hotels on Ocean Drive, is now considering a plan to demolish this 8-year-old Senator Hotel. And by that time, those of us who lived here loved the Senator Hotel. It was probably the most beautiful of the hotels there at that time. And the effort failed. In no way, shape, or form of the preservationists in this community are going to sit back while they demolish it. See, we got tough. By that time, I was the chair of the Historic Preservation Board, so I was really thickly into it. I said, the time has come to grip this problem. Nancy said, if the senator goes, there will be more people looking to get rid of their buildings. You will have Ocean Drive surrounded by parking lots. That was, it's hard for me to say it, but that was how they thought of their Art Deco wonderland. By the way, we were the first of all the big places to have anything with a raised option that you could call something. The city has to come to grips with that problem. This was in April 9th, 1987. And October 1st, 1987, the planning board puts off a vote on new preservation rules. Preservation is trying to shepherd stronger laws against demolition. And we tried, but they were always the upper echelon who thought that they owned the building, that they said, well, you lost a month, we're not going to do it, but we're going to come back next month. They figured by next month, it'll be all taken care of. Voting to defer the message were 6 people. Now, I'm not afraid to mention
Oh, let's hear it.
because because I think a lot of you probably know who they are. Voting for a measure to give the city the right to stop the demolition of historic properties. That was the opponents. Were Keith Covens, Oscar Bosman, Norman Frank, Joe Drucker, Ralph Mizrahi, and Dr. Elias Herscher. Those were the people who were holding us back from moving. And at the same time, all around the district, we were losing buildings. I think there are a lot of loose ends sitting on the table, said Covens. I took that to think that maybe he was getting a little scared. He was the one who led the delay for consideration of the proposed ordinance. Proponents of the tougher zoning ordinance had hoped the planning board would act quickly. They thought that this was the moment, it was going to be quick, and send the message and the measure to the Beach Commission, the final body to vote on a zoning ordinance. We all thought that. We held our breath and said, now's the time. But despite the delay, we had one hero, and I hope that you all know who he was. He is wonderful. He was wonderful then, and he's still wonderful now. Despite the delay, Attorney Joe Fleming, the author of the tougher zoning measure, said he was optimistic that one of the 5 deferring members would switch his vote by the October meeting. I never got the middle of the part, but I do know that it happened because of Joe. He loved this more than anything in the world, to get them and stop this nonsense, and let's get on the way in making preservation happen. So preservationists mark at this time a decade. It was May 4th, 1989. Nancy Liebman dipped into her archives Tuesday and pulled out a 16-year-old letter urging Miami Beach residents to save the priceless buildings in the Art Deco district. Liebman, executive director of the Miami Design Preservation League, I was that once. I'm in between there somehow. Preservation. Breathed new, the designation breathed new life into the efforts of local preservationists to save and renovate the blighted area. It was all blighted, no matter what little specks I talked about, it was all blighted. And But the beach was soon reborn 10 years later. She announced, "Why aren't we considering this?" Which they did. The designation allowed developers to earn valuable tax credits. Why, you should have seen them rushing to the door. These are the people who wanted to build garages. Now they want us to help them to be reborn. And the beach had a new focus on the outside world. We began to look at the architecture of the tropical Deco as something really, really special. Up until now, it was a joke. It was like, as I described. But this all came about with the 10-year release that we could really start to work on these historic places. I have here. The beach in 1998, the beach gives initial okay to vast zoning reforms. Not only did we get the places, the buildings, and get people to buy them and do, but we also gave them a wonderful beginning that was going to look like we were really going to do something. On November 30th, 2002, there were new leaders at the helm of the Cultural Art Council, November 30th, 2002. Imagine we're still working our way. At the Miami Beach Cultural Arts Council change came, and there were two Nancys now. Two Nancys. Nancy Walcott, I'm sure some of you know who she was the chair. I was finished with all of that other. There were enough people on this board. My last day of being on the board was in 2002. So now I just got together with everybody and just try to reminisce about all of the things that we were able to do because we did everything we had to do. And I could go on forever. I didn't want you to run out. I can only tell you that all of the years of my life with the preservation movement, I was so impressed, and I was always with them. There's Daniel. Daniel came, how many years?
You mean volunteer or working?
The whole thing.
Like about 12 years ago.
12 years ago. But you didn't come to us 12 years ago, did you?
Around that.
Oh, you didn't make a lot of noise then, that's why. But we just did everything that we could, and although I'm not going to be involved the way I was all during the time, I can never get rid of it. If I see somebody coming to build a parking garage, I think I will scream to the top of my lungs. That was it. They were going to build parking garages on where the ocean comes to the sand. So that is my small treat, that I try to involve people in, and I hope that all of you, I'm sure all of you, I can't imagine any of you would have been on that side looking to see how they could make a parking lot. So I appreciate, first of all, that you've come. Second of all, that you are part of our group, and you just know where to go and how to do it. And I thank you for listening to me. I
wanted to ask Nancy, it sounds like she stopped in 2002. No. So you want to talk a little bit about how you used your lecture series, your panels, as a way to educate people about historic preservation. You know, we have the Esme Hotel. She first introduced that to us. There's many properties that she immediately heard about and began to encourage more of that kind of development through panels, through lectures. Do you want to talk a little bit about your years of doing those amazing educational opportunities for people like us?
How many hours would you like to hear? I feel like I'm flattering, and I don't want to. I don't want to discourage you if this is your first attempt at trying to figure out what historic preservation is. But it's a very difficult thing to figure out what it is, because it has so many things that you can understand and want to happen in your community. I don't think, first of all, my memory is about at halftone by now, and I can't. You know them better than I do. If you would like to do, because I can't pull anything out. It's so enormous to think. That, oh, I like that.
All right, does anyone have a question for Nancy? All right, there we go. Linda.
Hi, well, this is probably for all three of you. Is there any way we can save these wonderful historic homes? What can we do to advocate? As Daniel posted, this is a home I would see every time I walk my dog. It's on Prairie. It was this beautiful Mediterranean revival. It was salmon color.
Yes.
And I loved it, and all of a sudden it's gone. And I know you posted it on the Art Deco, on MDPL's Facebook page. What can we do? Is there anything we, as Miami Beach citizens, can do? Thank you.
I think that we have to get a little tougher. And I'm willing to be one of the crowd and being tougher. That is the worst time I ever had when I had to talk to those people who were telling me Deco, Schmecko, Dreco. I mean, that's all they knew. They didn't even know what it was. They didn't know what it. So I think we need Daniel and everybody to put things together to make people be very happy to come and see if they've never seen what goes on with the Deco. I think that would be, it's difficult because there are people all over who have other avenues to pursue. I'm sure some of the people who were looking at one time, looking at the buildings, they probably got involved with something else and decided, well, I'll do this, or I'll have this one. I think that, I don't know.
Well, I have
Maybe sitting beside me on both sides, these are the two, what word can I use for you? Now, those were the old people when you weren't even born. That's what would happen. But I think that if we could get people to feel excited about it.
That's true.
That's it.
Yeah, maybe I could talk about a little bit of recent things. But I think with the homes, one of the issues is what Nancy was saying. We have to make it cool to have a historic home. We're a very young community. A lot of people are moving from all around the world and don't necessarily understand that we have also an architectural vocabulary of single-family homes that can be just as important, if not more, than the commercial. And I know for a fact that Barbara Kaplan, on literally her deathbed, was saying that we took care of the commercial area. Next, we got to work on the single-family homes. That was in the early 90s, still work to do, but we will continue doing our best to raise awareness and hope that the public process tightens the regulations, because it's really environmentally, socially, culturally, architecturally a tragedy to see these homes lost.
I just want to add, Daniel and I worked on a project that was one of the biggest projects in Miami Beach, and it's as you go over the causeway. It was owned by the Boo Doctor and the Miami Wives. Was that the Housewives? And they owned one of the most original homes by one of our first architects, Walter DeGarmo. And we had everybody involved, and we worked very hard on it. But people in the commission were not interested, and they loved it when she got in the little truck and drove around, banging into the building and knocking columns down or something, so she could, have exposure. I mean, it was just very tough for us. And it was you see it, for those that don't know, when you go over the causeway, look to your right, the MacArthur Causeway, and right in the middle is a white house. She knocked, and the doctor knocked that down and put up their new, and I don't even know if they still live there anymore. I don't know if they're still married anymore.
They're divorced.
Yeah, divorced. So, I mean, we could have predicted that, but we didn't have people that would support us on the commission because they liked the glitz and glamour of that couple.
Yeah, but I think on that, I think even sitting here, I'm starting to realize more preservation is a continuum of time. And I think honestly, just like we look at the Senator, is how could we have lost that? I think when we look at this Star Island house, when it was this couple, she wanted a really big closet and knocked down one of the most significant homes on Star Island. And I think I just heard they're no longer married. So, when these things when we document them, when we share them through projects like this and through outreach, I think eventually people will realize, maybe we do want to save these homes. Maybe folks can have a little smaller closet or build their own house somewhere, but try to find ways to incentivize retaining the historic homes. But that's a saga will continue. And I think we have time for one more question, so I'll ask the former board member, Bill Mann.